Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Mexico Tech Sectors. Thank you for being here today. Sorry that we are a little bit late today, but just finalizing some stuff here. So today, we are going to talk about Mexico and the tech sectors that are booming up in this amazing and diverse country. Most of the tech sectors that Mexico has, and it really has too many, are booming up since 4 years ago. But we are going to focus here in three of those sectors. One is going to be the ICT sector, the other is going to be IoT, and the last one is going to be energy. So the information that we are going to provide here is going to be pretty much focused in those three, and it's going to be very general, really, in compare, with what you can see. Deeply from other sources, probably in Spanish. Now, here we are going to talk about those sectors, and then in our next webinar, we're going to go deeply with our guest about statistics and all that. So first, let me remind you, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to contact us to contact at latamstartups.biz or to at the hashtag LATAM Startups. And then you actually, get in contact with us, and we are going to be happy to answer your questions or to hear your comments and feedback about this webinar as well. Well, let's start with, first data here about Mexico. So first thing that you need to know is that, of course, Mexico is a big city, it's a big country, and the population is around 122 million people. It's part of the Pacific Island countries, and this is an economic bloc that basically is the counterpart of Brazil in terms of GDP and population. The Pacific Island countries more or less has more than 200 million people. And the tech sector in Mexico has been developing slowly since long time, but since 2013, INADEM, National Entrepreneurship Institute of Mexico, started activities to support entrepreneurship in the country. With a special focus in innovation. INADEM helps with ideas to become entrepreneurs. So really, they go from the idea phase to the go to market. In this case, go to market sometimes is the local market, and they also help to internationalize the ideas. So this is INADEM, and they have INADEM also manages different kind of funds to support financially the startup sector. The institute is part of the Secretary of Economy of Mexico, and it has been leading the government initiatives related with startups. In this specific, INADEM has a fund called Emprende TIC, which is more or less ICT entrepreneurs, helping startups in the ICT sector to get seed capital to start operations. It covers all national startups, and just as an example, in 2013, this fund supported more than 170 startups. This is not the only fund that INADEM has for entrepreneurs and startups. The other funds have supported entrepreneurial initiatives as well since 2013, but they may not focus just in ICT, the other funds. They have different funds supporting any kind of initiative that entrepreneurs may have in mind. And of course, it goes like a certain competition and call to the market to actually qualify for the funds that INADEM is provided to this sector. Now, INADEM is the representation of the government of Mexico, but the private sector as well has many players in the market, from from university business incubators and private business incubators to accelerators and innovation centers. Mexico has more than 500 nationwide private institutions in this area. Mainly, Mexico has worked very close with the USA. Institutions like MIT works with University Business Incubators as Tecnológico of Monterrey, which itself manages 68 incubators nationwide. So you can see here that actually Mexico has a really wide support all through different cities. And it's important to understand as well that Mexico is not just Mexico City, that there are other cities that are also supporting these startup sectors that we are going to talk about in the next slides. But those cities are also Jalisco and Monterrey and Guadalajara. Depending of the market that you are developing, they offer different kind of communities for startups. Now, other players have been growing strongly in the last 3 years, and those are, for example, Startup Mexico, NXTP Labs, and Wyram. BBVA is as well one of the banks. This is a bank that, if you haven't heard about that, this is a big bank from Spain that has a strong presence in Latin America, and they also has built innovation centers in Mexico, and there are big support and for startups as well, not just for fintech but also for other ideas. Now, what I was saying before, that the startup sector in Mexico is not just centralized to Mexico City, is also developing in Jalisco, Guadalajara, and Monterrey, as I just mentioned it. Those are key players, and as cities, and these cities are bringing specialization sectors, and that may be from hardware to nanotechnology. So really what you are looking for when you are expanding business in Mexico, you will see that you have many kind of communities in the country. Now, in ICT sector in a specific, this is one of the strongest sectors developing in the last 5 years. There are statistics showing that more engineers than USA. And that's true. They produce a big number of engineers. Just to give an example, in 2012, Mexico has had the very first lab to develop mobile applications in Latin America. And this lab was actually co-created by Nokia and in the Jalisco state. And by the end of 2013, the private sector have invested in more than 170 startups. This is a number of approx, and $7 million in startups in 2013. Now, those are all numbers for sure. Now, those numbers have increased in 2014 and 2015. This sector continues growing due to the factors as access to internet and penetration of smartphones in Mexico. More than 53 million people access to, and this is pretty much 50% of the population in Mexico. This data is from 2014, and the expectation in the next years will be 10% per year. By the end of 2015, 81 million people were using cell phones. 62% of the users are accessing internet to services through smartphones. And it's estimated that the growing in the acquisition of smartphones in Mexico is going to be around 23% per year. Samsung is the leading company in the market regarding smartphones. Now, all these numbers showing that actually Mexico is going to increase the number of startups developing mobile application. And in the ICT sector, one of subsectors that has been increasing in the last years is fintech. And in the other countries in Latin America, fintech is increasing presence in the region. Just in Mexico, more than 100 fintech companies have been created in the last years, and those numbers 2015. Bank services, access to money transfer, crowdfunding platforms, between other solutions, are booming up in Mexico. The ICT sector is a sector with a great potential to keep growing, and with a big population, and the natural entry to Latin America and North America. Mexico is actually in the right place to lead the market in this area. So take a look of that. Really, ICT is one of the strongest sectors that you will see developing in Mexico, especially. But as well, as you have followed other webinars from our company, this is not just the only country that is developing ICT solutions, but is one of the strongest startup nations doing that at this point. Now, for the next one, IoT. This is really special, in this moment, to say that Mexico is developing IoT. This is because the other countries in Latin America are really in early stage in compared with Mexico in this sector. Internet of Things is something that is really booming up in Mexico, and we're going to show some numbers now of how is developing this sector in Mexico right now. Just 1% of the things in the world are connected. And in Mexico, the investment in solutions related with IoT have reached already $1 billion by the end of 2015. A good number of people in Mexico is connected to internet through cell phones, TVs, cameras, and other devices. 223 million dollars had been invested to develop IT solutions in a specific for home devices. And this is a tendency, not just in Mexico, of course, is a tendency around the world, that investment in that area, home devices, is going to keep increasing. So also, there is an increase in the usage of vehicles with special devices connected to internet. Area has reached in 2015 $5 million. Equipment for health sector, the investment in this area has been $18 million, and wearables, $22 million. Big companies this sector. Last year, the main beneficiaries were the manufacturing and the logistic industry in Mexico. It's estimated by 2020, 1,000 million of devices will be connected. That's amazing. And Intel is one of the global companies investing in Mexico right now. In 2014, Intel opened centers in Guadalajara and Jalisco to impulse the IoT sector in the country. So you can see here, for those companies, international companies that are actually developing wearables and all related with IoT, Mexico is a good place also to expand into Latin America. And for our fellow friends in Latin America that are looking at this, also Mexico is kind of the entry to North America in that area in specific. So IoT sector is really strong sector developing right now in Mexico. A sector, and the energy is one of the most in Mexico. Innovation is an area that is key for the country, and keep the good development of Mexico. So in 2014, IDB, Inter-American Development Bank, partnered with FSE, a national energy fund, in order to encourage entrepreneurs to create projects in the energy sector. Now, currently, those alternative solutions represents the 25% of the energy in Mexico, which is amazing. But that has a reason is Mexico is part of what is called the solar belt. And this means that Mexico has a great potential to develop solar energy. The country is producing solar panels and is leading in the region, even above Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. Manufacturing in this area is mainly located in Monterrey. Wind farms are being developed in Oaxaca. So that the world areas actually that are that has one of the best places in the world to develop wind farms. Local corporations and multinational companies from the region are putting together funds to develop green tech and clean tech solutions to the great market that Mexico represents in this area. From 2011, the investment in this in energy has been above $6,000 million. So that's really a good number for energy companies that has put together, some funds for those projects that are booming up in the energy sector. It's expected that by 2017, 10% of the source of energy will come from renewable energy in the country. Mexico is really a natural leader in this area and this sector as well, and is booming and increasing in the number of solutions to the capacity and natural conditions of the country. So, as you can see here, we are talking basically about ICT, IoT, and energy, and those three sectors are really important for the tech ecosystem in Mexico because is spending right now where the investors are putting, the effort there to developing solutions in those areas. But for sure, these are not just the three sectors that Mexico is booming in the tech. So you have to consider also social innovation. You have to consider so many other sectors because Mexico is really a diverse and a big country in Latin America, and it has many solutions. It will depend once again where you would like to expand your business, but it is not just about Mexico City. It's about just Mexico as the country that provides different opportunities and solutions depending of the ecosystem. Now, well, this is just an introduction of the three sectors. We'd like to share with you in our today that in our next webinar, Mexico Investors and Connectors in May 18, we are going to talk about more about these sectors and how the country projects the future of these sectors and also how it's projected in the region. And those join us that day are special guests from the government and from the private sector. So you will see there in them, you will see there Startup Mexico, an investor and another connector from Mexico. They are going to help us to understand better how Mexico is spending money there, how many startups have been, developing solutions in the last years, and how you as a startup or as an investor can approach to Mexico and actually take advantage of the great time right now to develop solutions in those areas in specific and many others that are booming up as well. So this is in May 18th. We hope you can join us that day. We're going to have a full 1 hour webinar with them, and you can just talk with our guest and have your questions there. We are also having LATAM chats in May 10th. And now in that LATAM chats, we are going to talk with some amazing startups from Mexico that are scaling up new markets. So we are going to talk about the challenges and opportunities for Mexican startups to reach new markets and how they see their own ecosystem. And finally, please remember that we have our next conference in Mexico City in October. So we hope to see you there, and you can see firsthand how is the startup sector developing in Mexico. You can meet with the Latin American ecosystem, because we are actually coming with so many other people from Latin America that are leaders and startups scaling and new markets, and also with our great partner, which is Canada, helping us, to cooperate each other and to get soft landing programs, the startup visas, all that for startups that are looking into new markets. So thank you so much today for joining us. I don't know if you have any questions about what is the startup ecosystem in Mexico right now. So I'm just going to open up here. So here, for the questions. If you are there and if you have any question, please let me know. And we have a first question from Toronto, and this is about the programs, soft landing programs that Mexico has. So, okay, about the soft landing programs, it will depend also when you would like to apply for what kind of a startup do you have. But one first connection that you should make is actually with a startup Mexico program that are helping international startups to get into Mexico. So they actually select these startups. They have a co-working space. It's an amazing space in Mexico City, and they are expanding into other cities, but they are helping international startups to come to Mexico. There are also potential soft landing programs in other supporters of the ecosystems, as Tech Monterrey, for example. So in your question, I cannot see really well what kind of startup do you have. So if if you email us to contact at latamstartup.biz, I can tell you for sure what kind of incubator or accelerator may be good for you. You will see there in Mexico, you have Guaira and you have NXTP Labs. Those two accelerators are very well known in Latin America. In general, they have presence in several countries in Latin America. So just starting in Mexico will be a good place. But they also have, presence all along Latin America. So for next question about Guadalajara and Monterrey, what are developing in those cities? What kind of solutions are developing? Okay, about that, Guadalajara, as far as I understand, they are developing hardware solutions. Monterrey, they are developing, solutions in energy, as you could present in the webinar. This is not saying that they are not developing applications or ICT, but it's saying that probably the strongest sectors are in hardware and green tech and clean tech. Depends of this city. Just for you to know, also Jalisco is developing nanotechnology, for example. So that's one of the things that I believe, depending of the type of a startup that do you have. Again, in your question, I cannot see the startup that you have, but depending of the startup, it may be that Mexico City is not the right place. Maybe Guadalajara or maybe Monterrey. Mexico City is always good because it has all the diverse ecosystem, but you have to consider also the other cities are good for international startups to come up and expand business basically. So if you have any other question right now. Okay, so if you think about it later about the information we have done, we have given right now, and if you have any other questions about the Mexico startup ecosystem, just contact us. Contact at latamstartups.biz or the hashtag LatamStartups. Or if you want to join us in our next webinar, this is a free webinar with all the guests, and you have questions for them, just let us know in advance, and we can ask your questions to them and connect you with the guest. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the information we give about Mexico. Bye now.